years have you been a member of MMAS? Almost as long as Anthony has?
No,
Not Anthony. Anthony's the.
he was a member before I was born.
Yeah.
I think at least 16 years. Yeah, at least 16.
Anyway, you're gonna enjoy this talk, I'm sure. There's nothing to.
You're playing on your computer again.
Mhm. Who's talking to me? Is there anything on for next month yet?
No.
No, you haven't, we haven't gotten a speaker for this one. Anyway, here's Kris.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of new faces here, which I haven't seen. It's a great thing because there was a time when the club was kind of reaching a plateau and kind of stale. We were struggling a lot to attract new members. Even old members like me were not showing up, fortunately. So, hello, everyone. So this talk is quite relaxed. When we think about astronomy, we think about telescopes and Hubble images and now JWST and all those fantastic equations that define how the universe evolves and all that. So none of that stuff here. This is about how cultures across, some regions, this is especially Eastern cultures, how they relate to the sky, and what role the sky played in their lives. That's basically what's going to be. I will share some stories. It's not comprehensive. It is, think of it just as a sample from some of the cultures in the East, Southeast Asia, Japan, China, Mongolia, and those. Because of a lot of commonalities, you will find a lot of them the stories are same, but they change characters or names a little bit, especially because these stories were carried by religion across the region, like Hinduism, Buddhism. So some of the things that there is one god in Hindu and there is a different name in Buddhism, but it's the same rabbit on the wall. So just to give you an idea. Or the same sages, somebody calls it 7 Buddhas and the other one calls it 7 sages, 8 sages. So yeah, you will find a lot of commonalities too. But essentially, the overall what the stories try to show is that how people not just studied the sky, but also lived with it across the ages. These days, we study the sky a lot more than living with it, I think. Our ancestors did not just study, they also lived with it. Some stories mark time, others kind of pass on some values, and there are some others which are in the human connection. Yes, that's the general distribution. So without any further ado, just get into some of the stuff that I wanted to show you. Because this is deeply cultural, I wanted to share something from my own childhood, and I think it is representative of how deeply astronomy was connected to the culture. I don't think my childhood was any extraordinary or anything like that. I think this was pretty common in our area, at least where I come from, South India. So most of the traditional culture had, astronomy built into the early education. Like even a 5-year-old. So this is a sampling of what a 5-year-old had to do at home at dusk. When the sun sets, you sit down for your prayers and learn certain facts. Some of those facts are like alphabets in your own language. So I had to study those in our language. There are 56 consonants and 10 vowels. So we have learned that. Every day you sit down after prayers and wisdom. Memorize it. Certain others, when as you go up, like addition tables, multiplication tables, you learn up to 10 or 16 or 20, whatever the parents set the norm for you at your age. Days of the week is something that you learn. I mean, it's not that hard. Coming down, number 6 and 7 were pretty interesting, because phases of the moon was one of the key things that we had to learn. There were 15 of them, and each of them individual names. You have to learn them. Yes.
We only got 4.
Yes. There are 15 of those phases, and there are 2, the waning and the waxing correspond. So there were, so you have to learn all that, and they play, a role in everyday life. Similarly, the hardest thing was the 27 nakshatras. These are the lunar mansions, how the moon moves across the sky. It takes 27 days, 27 and 1/3 day, actually, the sidereal period. You have to learn each of them. Because even today, the birthdays are celebrated, at least in our region, traditional cultures, by these nakshatra system. Although we have in the Gregorian calendar a date of birth, even my family members today also, they wish me my birthday on that day, but they differ. The calendar day and this one differ, but this is what is followed. So it is actually ingrained in people's lives deeply. It's a living thing. It's not something that is going away, I don't think. So you have to learn all that, and after that you get to do your dinner and all that. So it takes some. Yes, so I just want to show that. And so 15 of these moon phases, you have the names. Similarly, the 27 of them, these are the names. Now, so you learn them. It starts from Ashwati, Bharat, and India, when you think of it, it's more like Europe, like 20 different cultures, and they all have the same system, but different names. And some may be slightly different in some calendars and all that, but these are exactly the same. So I just want to show, this was not an easy task, but since I learned it from my early childhood, I still know them. All of them. And let's see, the tracking of the time itself. That is through months. The circle outside is our Gregorian calendar months. And here is the inner circle is the interesting one, which are the months, the 12 months, according to the traditional system that we do. Those months are aligned with the zodiacal signs or constellations. Aries is the first constellation zodiacal. That's the name of the month. And the month starts when the sun enters Aries. That's a system, or at least the constellation. But that's it. And the next one, So the same sun, same sun. Even today, that's the system that's followed. So I just want to show you that. I mean, this is the region where I came. Each of these regions have slightly varying dates, but they are all essentially the same. So one other thing, the connection to astronomy from the calendar point of view, there are 2 other things I want to show. This is like a key thing. So having seen how the time is organized around calendar, the new year is a critical point, right? It's a big marker how the year starts. And every culture has a different name, and it comes around the same time. So where I grew up, it's called Vishu. That's the new year. That's celebrated the first day of the month of Aries. And, it's for children, it's an exciting day because they get money, like elders give them money. But in every house, we set up something like this, a lot of nice things, new clothes, fruits, all that stuff is kept. And this kind of setup is done as an auspicious first viewing for the year. So you basically come down with your, eyes closed, come to the room where this is set up, and you look at it. It's supposed to be very auspicious start for the year. That's how it is. Yeah. And Vishu actually means, it falls on April 14, 15 these days, but traditionally it means, it comes from the word Vishuvat. Vishuvat means equal day and night. So the day actually marked when the sun entered Aries, right? The vernal equinox. That's when it started. So the vernal equinox today is on March 21st. But this celebration is on April 14, 15. That's when it comes. So this shows you how precision has taken vernal equinox away from the time. If you look at it, currently we are around here. The vernal equinox is in Pisces. It's not in Aries. It's not been in Aries for 2,500 years, right? About 81,000, it was still in Pisces, around the beginning of the Common Era. It's still in Pisces. This was a time when equinox was in Aries. So this gives you an idea how far back these festivals go. It's how they're calibrated. They may have been calibrated later by the people who do calendars and all that, but it really goes way back. Just to do sense. But these New Year festivals are still celebrated. But they are all very important festivals in every culture. Okay, so those are the bigger chunks of time. Now, we still need to come up with smaller chunks of time. How the shorter cycles of time are calculated. They're based on moon cycles of the moon. So there is a story that nicely captures that. There was an ancient king. He had 27 daughters. It was 27. That's a period of the moon. And he married off all his daughters to the moon. And moon would spend time with each of his wives. But there was one wife he was partial to, and he would spend more time with her than with others. And they were not very happy about that. So they went and complained to their father. The one that he was spending more time with is called Rohini, and that's a star Aldebaran in Taurus. It's the bright star. So the rest of the women went and complained to their father, and the father, being more powerful he is, he cursed the moon. He cursed the moon. He said, "May your light fade away. You are so arrogant about your beauty and your brightness. May your brightness fade away." And he cursed the moon. From that day on, the moon's brightness started fading. Day by day, it started fading. And the light became almost nothing. It became practically invisible. Then the wives got scared. They didn't mean to harm him. So they ran back to their father and begged him, please remove your curse. This is too bad. We didn't mean to harm him. And the father actually kind of softened the curse. Okay, you will brighten back again, but you will go through these cycles of fading and brightening, maximum waning.
Yes, it is.
So that's the story of the monthly cycle of 30 days. And the 27 wives are the 27 lunar mansions. The moon takes 27 days to go through the one cycle, right? So these are 27 wives of the story. So both cycles are captured by both the sidereal as well as the solar type of tropical type of cycles are captured in the story. Okay, so now from all the changing cycles, let's look at some of the fixed stars that some of the stories feature. This is the Big Dipper. I think everybody understands this, and it plays a big role in a lot of countries. There are stories about these where they are called the 7 Buddhas, and in others, like in Hindu culture, they're called the 7 sages. And these sages are wise and powerful, and people look at them for guidance. There are binary stars here, right? Mizar and Alcor. Even today, in some regions, during marriages, when they perform them, when the priest perform marriage, they will point to these stars. Mizar and Alcor, the young couple, they say that this is the sage called Vasisht and his wife Arundhati, and show them as examples of how you should stay together always. That's kind of marital harmony and loyalty. And today also, I mean, in our culture, we didn't have that, but some other people said they went through that. And the priest was showing star. Of course, the priest didn't know the sky. He was pointing to some random star. Right star, that's a different story.
So
But-
I'm sorry, do the other stars also have some kind of a meaning, like this one is
Yeah.
battle, fulfillment, loyalty? Like
Yeah.
the others have like
Others, I'm not aware of any specific meaning attached to them, but they all have names of each stage. So, but they all are featured in various stories and mythology. So this one, this was called Vasishtha. I said this one's Marichi. This one is called, I think, Kruti, something. They all come in various stories all across. Yeah, but I'm not aware of any such value that if they are going to. That's all I was saying. But this one was quite popular. Assist identity pairs. Yeah, even my own grandmother, who was born in 1900, used to tell me that. Yeah, she used to show me the star and tell me, look, now you can see 2 stars there. Those are Vasishtha. I cannot see because I'm 70 years old. But when you grow old, you probably won't be able to see. She used to tell me. And she was not school educated, I think, because there was no school in our place at the time when she was growing up. I'm pretty sure there was no school. But there was this traditional system of education. It doesn't mean that she was uneducated. She was pretty well. So this is the Pleiades constellation, no, asterism, right? And there are similarities between these two looks of it. In many cultures, there are stories about them also. The Pleiades, the 6 stars are supposed to be wives of the other 6 sages. And there is a story about that. I'll come to that next. The 7th wife was along with her husband. She is always with her husband. These 6, they're probably not as loyal to their husbands. It's come evident in the next story. But I won't go into all the gory details, but I will just give the sanitized version. So there is a very popular god in South India, Malaysia, Singapore, and some other similar places. It's called Shanmukha, the 6-faced god. There is a long story about his birth. But what happens is that there is one of the supreme gods is called Shiva. There's a spark of energy comes from his third eye. And the fire god carries it and takes that spark to the river, the holy river Ganga, where the 6 maidens, those 6 wives of the other sages, they were present at the time. In some stories, they get pregnant, and in other stories, the spark actually becomes kind of 6 babies and they bring them up. All that. So I'll let you read it in case some children are watching this video. So 6 babies are born, and these maidens bring them up. And when Shiva's wife, Parvati, actually embraces those 6 children, their bodies kind of merge into one body, and but he becomes a 6-faced god. That's kind of natural. But it's a very popular god in all these places. That's associated with the 6, and there are festivals associated with the Pleiades called Kartika and various things like that. I don't know if these stories are interesting, but I thought I would just share anyway. Yeah. Okay, the next story that comes in many cultures also, but it's about stability. And it passes on certain values. I mean, values might change depending on the time period the story is told. Some may be teaching devotion to a god, and some others may be teaching, hey, your perseverance and your steadfast focus on your goal, that's going to reward you. This is one such story. There was a young prince, Dhruv. His mother was the wife of a king, but she was not the favorite wife. The favorite was another wife, who was the queen. So this 5-year-old child, one time he ran to the father and he sat on his lap. But the queen actually pulled him out and said, you don't deserve to sit on the king's lap. My son deserves that place. And she kind of insulted him, and the father neglected him. So he was very sad. So he decided, I want to achieve something where people will respect me. I want to achieve such a station that no one will reach that station in life. And he went to the, for guidance, everybody goes to the 7 sages. He consulted one of them and he said, you pray to this particular god. If you pray with these kind of mantras and you with steadfast attention and focus without getting distracted, the god will grant you your wish. And there is a long story. When he starts with ultimate focus, his meditation and practices, there are a lot of natural events that take place due to the power of what he was doing. And many of the heavenly beings started sending their agents to distract him. Some sending someone in his mother's form to distract him, or some sending some demons and things like that. Nothing worked. Finally, the god appears and asks him what he wants. And he says, I want to attain a station in life that no one else can attain. So he said, I know exactly that kind of station that we deserve. And he puts him as a star. And that is the North Star. Everybody. So I said the whole story in the first slide, but this is captured in. Yeah, that's where he is being chased away. He goes for advice. The god appears, and finally it's all done. And there is another story. Dhruv. So Dhruv in Sanskrit means apex or pole. That's also seen. There is a Mongolian story, which is also interesting. They call it the seven Buddhas and the pole star, and there is some name. Dulun Bakan and Altan Hadas. I can never remember those ones. I had to write it down. So there was 8 brothers, orphan brothers. They all had, some superpowers, like the Avengers and those days. So their powers were well known across the country. So what happens during that time? Something happens. The king's wife, I think, the queen was abducted by a monster, or a giant monster. And the king tried a lot, he sent his armies and all that, and nothing worked. The giant defeated all of them. So the king announces a bounty to whoever can go and, rescue his wife from this giant. And the 8 boys, young men, go after the giant. They're tracking him down for 2 days, 3 nights. The third night, they're tracking him down and kill him and rescue his wife. And when they came back with the queen, the king thought, okay, one person will, present his wife, but there were 8 people with it. So he had actually a golden arrow that he was planning to give us a reward. That's what he had announced us a reward. But instead of chopping the golden arrow into 8 pieces, he threw it in the sky, or shot it in the sky. Whoever can catch it, you can keep it. That's what he said. And the youngest brother actually catches it, and he becomes the pole star. And every night, the other 7 visits him. Going around. That's the big story. Ongoing story. Okay, so yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can I please request that you stay closer to the computer? Because your voice becomes feeble when you go away from it.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank
What
you.
happens that the other mic was not working for me. So, but I'll try and stay closer.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah. Now, just an interesting aspect about pole stars. I mean, all these stories, someone must have written, right? I don't believe that the God can give a story from the children or something. So we are here around the year 2000, and this is the closest Polaris will ever be to the North Pole. It's around 2000. And around the beginning of Common Era, there were no stars by the North Pole. In the previous time something was there, and the North Pole was Tuban. That's around 3000 BC. So think of the time scale. I mean, there is written evidence that these stories go way beyond the beginning of the Christian era. Right? So I'm not trying to peg a time period, but I just want to show you the antiquity of some of these stories. Yeah. I mean, we can debate whether it happened here or some other place, but really they go way back. Right? It's a position. It's a star is seen fixed at some point. There are times when there are no stars. Yeah, this is an interesting story as well. It's called Trishanku's Heaven. It actually means, literally means inner limbos. It's neither here nor there. That's the meaning of that. I found the picture when I was with Wikipedia. Al-Biruni had, if you ever get a copy, it's very interesting. Around 1000 AD, he visited some of these places and wrote some of these stories. Some were lost, the originals, but he is a source of some of these. Yeah. So Trishanku basically was a very virtuous king. I'm just giving the story in a gist. It was a long story and all this. He was a very virtuous king. By virtue, his soul deserved to go to heaven. But Trishinku was a little more ambitious than that. He wanted to go to heaven, ascend to heaven in his mortal body. So, and that's not going to happen, at least not easily, right? So what he did was he again approached one of those 7 stages, you remember from. And I think it was Vasishtha himself. But the sage advised him, no, this is not natural. You cannot do that. It's quite unnatural to even hope for that, and it cannot happen. Then he goes, approaches his brother, his son, the sage's son. And they didn't like it either because the king was trying to play the son against the father. He didn't like it. So they kind of probably insulted him, or in the story, they deformed him and all that. So finally, the king goes to a rival of the sage, who got very angry. And he said, I'm going to send you to heaven in your mortal body. And he started his, whatever they do, rituals and all that. So he started ascending to heaven. And the Lord of the heavens got very upset with this. This is very unnatural. This cannot happen. It's not natural. So he pushed him down. And he was coming down, upside down, and the sage was pushing it up. Finally, they had a conversation. Well, the king of the heavens, he was saying, this cannot happen. He was pleading with the sage, you are all powerful, but you should know that he cannot ascend to the heaven in his mortal body. Finally, they reach a compromise. The sage builds an intermediate heaven between the two heaven and earth, and places him there. And according to the story, it's a Southern Cross. The king is still hanging upside down. It never rises very high above the horizon. It's probably like a halfway down, something. So, but even today in the language, Trishanku's heaven means inner limbo. It's in common language. I will share that also. There are language expressions. Yeah, I forgot. Like in our language, there is a saying like Vyaravattam. I don't know if anybody understands that. It literally means 12 years, which is the orbit of the planet Jupiter. Even today, it is used in that fashion. It's Jupiter circle. Literally, that's what it means. It means 12 years. If somebody says Jupiter circle, we understand that. But in common language, it is used in that fashion. So a lot of these expressions, related to astronomy. Okay. Caught in a limbo. Oh yeah, this is the rabbit. Another story. This is about human values, perhaps. Not so much about stars and all that. Lord Buddha, I think in English he's called Buddha, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I would probably say Buddha because that's how I'm used to it. So please auto-translate that. The story is that Lord Buddha has taken many, many births before he was born as Buddha the Enlightened. And in each of these forms, he was highly virtuous. And some of these births were animals and not all were humans. And one such birth was as a rabbit. And this rabbit's virtues were widely known. And as sometimes the gods do, the Lord of the heavens, he wanted to test this rabbit in his virtue. He was supposed to be very generous. And the rabbit was living in a jungle with his friends, like a monkey and an otter and some other animals. So the Lord of the heavens, he came as a weary traveler, needing food. And the rabbit didn't have anything to offer. His friends offered him some fruits and other things, but the rabbit himself didn't have any. So he offered his own body as meat, and he jumped into fire to offer sacrificing himself. That's the story. But then suddenly the god, left his pretenses and he saved him and he said, I'm going to place you on the moon. He landed on the moon. Yeah, there he is. I think one could actually think that, this kind of story or the people who came up with the story were living more towards the tropics. But if you go northern latitudes, the moon's appearance tells, then you tend to see more of the old man that we see in some of the pictures. Just my thought. If you tip the picture, you start seeing that aligned with that old man image. Yeah. Okay, so we are moving on to more of a system. We'll move on to something very interesting, but I just want to show you there is a concept of navagrahas in those cultures. Navagrahas means 9 planets. Planets, the word planet is used in a slightly looser way than we understand. So these are heavenly bodies. The seven bodies are usual ones, like the sun, the moon, and the planets, the 5 planets. They all become the base of the peak, right? So there are 2 additional ones which you can never see. They are called Rahu and Ketu. There is an interesting story about. You can see this this particular plaque I took from somewhere. Carl Rico once asked me to get this from. So I got this plaque. So these are the 2 guys, I think. Rahu and Ketu. And there is a very interesting story. Churning the ocean of milk. So there was a situation where, actually there were 2 groups. One is the heavenly devas and the others are their enemies, like asuras. So they always fight. There was a situation where they had to cooperate. The devas needed the help of asuras. What happened was that the devas lost their immortality. And the 7 sages, or one of them said, you have to go churn the ocean of milk, and then elixir will come up. You consume that, you will regain your immortality. And churning the ocean was such a big task, they had to enlist their opponent's help to get that done. And there was always worries. You get the elixir, and then what happens? The other group also eats that, right? So there is always another god who will come and help. So that's kind of story. Now, I want to show you there is an impressive sculpture. This is in Bangkok airport. Same thing, giant sculpture. So they use, churning. Traditionally you use a small wood, but they had to use a big serpent, which was one of the gods around that. That's what they are. And the good guy, the heavenly devas, they are here holding the tail, and the other side is the asuras, they are holding the head. There are stories behind all that, why that side asuras and this side is, and how one side tried to play tricks on the other, and all that's a long story. But what happens is that finally, after many things came up, the things that they were seeking, that comes up finally, the elixir itself. So the Lord was Vishnu. He said, I will handle it. I will make sure that, only devas get the elixir, and the asuras will not get, none of them will get the elixir. So Vishnu takes the form of an enchantress. And he said, she said, okay, I will serve the elixir to all of you. Everybody sit down calmly, and I was serving. These are the devas, and this one is Laswaras, and she's planting. So what happens is that there was one asura from the other side sitting along with the devas, and he also ate after he got served the elixir, and he also ate that. The moment he ate, sun and the moon were sitting next to him, and they realized this guy doesn't belong to us, and he ate it. Now he's not going to die. And they told the heavenly maiden, the Vishnu, the Lord, and she uses a discus as a weapon. She kills him, chops his head off, and he becomes two pieces. Now he has already eaten the elixir, so he cannot die, but he became two pieces. Now, the two pieces are called Rahu and Ketu, and they are very angry at sun and the moon because these guys were, they told it, right? So they were responsible for this. So they are actually chasing sun and the moon in the sky. Even today, they chase the sun and the moon in the sky, and occasionally they catch up and swallow them. We know them as eclipses, and we have stories about, how this is the ascending node and the descending node. So there are one Ketu other nodes. But I think that's the story is pretty, I like the story better than the other one. So, yeah, when, things that happen out of order, stories come out to explain those things, right? So out of the 9 heavenly bodies, the 2 invisible ones are the nodes, so to speak. All right. Okay. This is the last story of this collection. The final story, this is one of, love, separation, and reunion. It's associated with a Japanese festival called Tanabata. It's celebrated in August, I believe. Traditionally, I think the 7th day of the 7th month, that's what they call it, according to their calendar. It's also linked to a Chinese folklore. They call it, Chinese call it the weaving girl, the weaver girl, and the cowherd boy or something. So the story goes like this, again, very brief. The king of, I think it was again the king of the sky. Yeah, it was the king of the sky. Orihime was the daughter of the king of the sky. And she used to weave beautiful clothes. Her father loved those clothes so much that, she could never stop weaving. She would continue weaving so that her father is pleased, and he liked all of them. Now, she also became sad that he wasn't letting her marry anyone, because he knew that, once she marries, she will stop weaving the clothes. She will go away, right? So this made her sad, and she told her father, and finally he says, okay, you can marry. They used to live by the river in the sky. You can probably guess what the river is. You can marry the cowherd boy who lives across the river. So she liked that idea. He was a handsome boy, and they get married. They fall in love and get married. Once they marry, the young couple, they stop their work because they were so much in love. The girl stops weaving clothes, and the boy wasn't paying attention to his cows, and the cows were wandering all over the sky. And the king of the heaven gets very annoyed at this. And he said, no, you both cannot meet, see each other anymore. And he separates them. he puts the boy on the other side of the river. She is here, they cannot meet. And she becomes very despondent. Okay, he takes mercy and finally says, okay, once a year, you both can meet. You can meet him. You can. But there was no way to meet because they were separated by the river, heavenly river, right? So a flock of magpies, birds, they offer their help. They become the bridge so that these two lovers can cross the river and meet each other once a year on the 7th day of the 7th month on the calendar. That's the flock of birds here. Now, what happens is that when, I'll just show the other one. When it rains, then the birds will not show up. So they have to wait till the next year. That's the others part of the story. So they cannot expect that they will always be able to meet, but if it doesn't rain, yeah.
So the river is Milky Way?
Yes, the river is the Milky Way. I'll just skip to that. And the two stars are Altair and Vega on either side of the Milky Way. I think this is the girl and I don't know, that's the girl. So that's it. One sky, many stories. The sky is same.
Great. Thank you, Chris. The questions?
Stop sharing and then, you know.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, Chris. Oh, sure. It's on one of the evenings that you showed.
Yeah.
Like Virgin or Queen Script.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how, like, now that's principally Islamic
Yeah.
religion. So I was just curious.
Yeah,
As to
so
how-
a lot of the ancient traditional knowledge of Hinduism was captured and transmitted by Islamic scholars. Yeah, so that's the reason I refer to Al-Biruni's work.
Yes.
And he actually gives very detailed account of.
You can unmute your microphone if you want to ask a question.
Yeah, and this, I think that picture, I found it on. And many of the ancient travelers, they give that concept of their ancient, you know, cultures and whatever. Like Marco Polo is one. You can find very interesting accounts of the old cultures there. There are the other, and there is the people that take.
Did you have to learn all that, a lot of that basic information you showed to getting in your home as a boy?
Yeah, at
I mean,
the.
I certainly applaud the educational discipline that went on in your home. And Tom, I don't think I've ever faced anything like that.
There was no choice.
And
That's the other.
my father's a little bit looser with me.
Anything else?
There's a few more questions.
Okay.
Having spent a lot of time in business in India, it seems every other day is an auspicious day.
Yes.
And all those astrological, astronomical, or is it just when the wedding chapels?
Yes. Yeah, there is a point at which this is too much. I totally agree with you.
But is there one particular day of the year that's more auspicious than others to get married? And is it related to the astrology?
I find that people use all those for those kinds of things, and it's not one. I don't believe in astrology, but astrologers are various ways of the time of the
this and. Maps and the family knowledge. Yeah. I don't understand. Oh,
Whoa,
careful.
so that's the part, I just gonna say something. Is that it? No more questions? Great, well, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you. You've been very patient, very nice.